16 minutes to 5. Power up on Power 98.7. On the line with Victoria Elias Postmasberg, money coach. We are talking about, as I did mention, money behaviors and if they are stopping you from reaching your savings goals. But also how Gen Zs are seeing money differently. How different generations look at money, from spending, saving, investing, and borrowing. Victoria, good morning.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing this morning?
All good. Thank you so much for making time. We appreciate that. Let's start right there. Are there different spending, saving patterns, investing, and borrowing, etc., from generation to generation?
Definitely, you would see that the trend changes. Our parents were using credit more so, to bridge the gap, for necessities. I remember my mom would always use clothing accounts to buy us like school uniform, winter clothes, Christmas clothes. But you find that our generation, we are now using credit to buy luxuries, to fund a lifestyle that we cannot afford. So there's definitely a change in the spending patterns.
Mm. And what I guess defines that? Is it just about how life changes generation to generation, year to year, that people, young people specifically, start seeing money differently?
I also feel like it's the background, when you grow up from a place of lack, right? The moment you get into contact with money or funds, your mind, your brain is automatically telling you that, listen, you've been wanting this. Now it's your moment. That's how you see that. For example, when people get business funding, these fundings are being misappropriated. They're being used for things that they shouldn't be used. And that's simply because we do not even have a background to stem from to say, this is how the money should be used. Therefore, this is how I'm going to use it. We're trying to thumbsuck it. We figure it out as we're going.
So how should we then approach, or maybe let's before we do that, look at how Gen Zs are dealing with money differently? Because now, I guess the big thing is about building assets, creating generational wealth, and realizing that the economy is not being nice to anyone.
So, building assets and creating that generational wealth, it's all about starting young, starting early, because that is the only way we will have the time to accumulate those assets. So when we start early, when we invest, when we have the knowledge, the know-how, it is very easy. One trend that I'm seeing in our generation is that we're busy selling off our family homes, right? That is our legacy. That is a stepping stone that we're supposed to start from and build from. But instead, when our parents are passing on, we're fighting amongst each other, and that is one of the worst mistakes that we are currently making. We need to hold on to those homes and use it so that the next generation, when they come about, they have something to start off with, not starting from scratch the way we are starting off from scratch.
Is it possible to build wealth while carrying some debt?
I'd say it's very difficult, but it is possible, right? So when debt comes into play, right, and I always prompt people to stay away from debt consolidation because it is a long-term effect. I'd say we need to start trying to manage our debt in our own personal capacities, communicate with the creditors, and then try and reconcile yourself. Once that is done, once you've agreed to payment terms, that allows you a little bit of leeway. Now you start looking at what types of assets are you going to invest in, and I feel like one of the main objectives would be for us to start living within our means. Because if you don't live within your means, there's no way that you'll ever have excess cash for you to now start saving up or invest in assets. So when we live within our means and we pay our debts the way we're supposed to service it, that way we are creating a bit of a leeway for us to have excess funds or to try and generate excess funds so that we can now start those emergency fundings, start those saving pockets, just so that we can see a bit of longevity into the future.
Is it possible also to have those long-term financial goals beyond staying out of debt? Because I think a lot of us would say, if I can just finish off this debt, then maybe I can start saving.
Yes, it's definitely possible, and that is where budgeting all comes in, right? So with budgeting, that's where you have the 50, 30, 20% method where you are appropriating your funds, you're telling your funds where to go, and you split it into your necessities, into your wants, and into your expenses, right? So when you have like your wants, that's the category where you're spending in terms of what you need, in terms of what you want, in terms of what makes you happy. In terms of your needs, you're spending on your home, on your big expenses. Then in terms of the other category, that is now where you have leeway to say, okay, a portion of this will go towards emergency savings, a portion of this will go towards short term, and a portion will go towards long term. It is very important to have that long term, because if you're not saving for long term, it means you'll keep on living, month to month, keep on living within this small leeway that you're creating for yourself. But the end goal is to say, in 10 years' time, I'm hoping to retire. When I retire, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm hoping to have. Once you have that vision, it is easier, it's like putting on your GPS location or putting on your address on the navigation. It will show you exactly how you get to where you're going. And that is how you plan in terms of long-term finances as well.
Where does the confidence, or where do the Gen Zs get the confidence to be financially confident? Is it about what they're seeing the previous generation and how they handled money that they want to do something different?
I don't necessarily think so. I think they're looking, the Gen Zs, they're very bold, right? So they have a wide range of audiences that they're drawing from. They have access to, television networks. They have access to the internet. This, exposes them to what the world has to offer. And once they've been exposed, you see a 2-year-old or 1-year-old on a cell phone being exposed to all of these concepts, that is imprinting onto the brain. And once the brain has recognized that this is possible, this is within reach, it's achievable, it breaks down all of those other traditional barriers that were there. That is why you see that English is not a problem for them. They've mastered it, and it's, it's their playing field. Whereas for us, it was a different situation where we had to learn, we had to teach ourselves, we had to go to school and learn the language. For them, by the time they are 5, 6, they're already fluent in English. So the stumbling blocks for them are less. Also, primarily because their parents have put in the work. Their parents were of the opinion that, listen, I need to work hard so that my kids can have it better. And I think Gen Zs are the result of those hard work of the parents that were saying, when I put in this effort, my children will benefit from it. This is the benefit that we're getting from it.
So in terms of getting the money right and maybe taking the leaf out of the Gen Z's book, how should one approach saving? And again, because we are living in a world where everything else is expensive, everything else is going up except salaries. And that's why many young people are saying that maybe we need to be at a point where we stop thinking of salaries and finding ways of making money.
Salaries are never going to be enough, and I was listening to another podcast recently where they were saying that, the workplace is like a new prison for us, right? It boxes us, it cages us. You get so reliant on this salary, on this money that is going to come in at the end of the month, even though you already know that you're broke. You already know that it is not enough to get you to where you need to go. You find that most people are broke before, like it's pay week this week. Before it is the 1st of July, so many people are already going to be broke, and we are able to change the narrative. Firstly, we need to realize that a salary is not enough and it will never be enough. We need to look at additional revenue streams, look at other ways for you to make money. There's so many that are available. That is what the Gen Zs are doing. They're leveraging the internet. They're leveraging AI. That is where we need to come in to say, what opportunities are available for me in a South African context, and also for me when I position myself outside of South Africa? Where can I offer my services, my expertise, so that I earn extra money to bridge that gap? Because once you don't bridge the gap, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel the burn. You're going to feel that you're not surviving, you're not holding above water. And that is why you see we are also a generation where the suicide rate is very high. It's because a lot of people have lost hope. But once we try to ignite that hope ourselves, we try to reignite that fire, reignite that candle, there will definitely be that light shining at the end of the tunnel, and we will be making it.
In conversation with Victoria Elias, as we are talking about the money behaviors and how they are stopping you from reaching your savings goal. I think one of the biggest things when it comes to money, Victoria, has always been the issue of saving. And a lot of people have an issue with saving. And sometimes not by choice. But the biggest thing is like, well, I can't save what I don't have. If my money doesn't even stretch beyond the 2nd of July, if I get paid on the 30th or 31st of every month, if my money can't even stretch beyond, how do you expect me to save?
I'd always say we always need to think of, let me give you an example. If you're driving a car and you don't have insurance and you happen to get into an accident or you drive through a pothole, right, and you don't have any contingency plan. Should this happen? Should I now need 2 new tires? Should I now need to pay for the other car that I was involved in an accident with? How is that going to happen? Once I get into that accident, how am I going to get from point A to point B? That is a contingency plan, right? That is why you need emergency funds. That is why you need savings. So now you're faced with that situation where you're saying you don't have enough money. Now your vehicle that gets you from point A to point B is no longer working. What is your plan of action? What are you going to do? You can't just jump up right now to try and access the funds right now. Everyone is going through a tough time and no one will have excess funds to borrow you. That is what's very important for us to know, that emergency funding, it's not a, it is not a want. It is a need. When it comes to savings, it is something that we need to do because you don't know when the ceiling will start leaking, So it's very important. And if you don't know how to manage the little that you have, trust me, it's going to be very difficult for you to manage a lot, because that's how people end up on I blew it. They end up there because they've not been managing the little that they have. A lot of people are saying, listen, if I were to have R1 million right now, this and this and this is what I would do. But have you written down those steps? Are you so sure? Or by the time the R1 million clocks in, now your priorities are changing. Now all of a sudden you need to upgrade your car because society expects that of you. You won the lotto. You're not telling anyone, but your actions is telling everyone, because that is what society has taught us to do. The show of life, living to impress others, living to show others that we are doing well, when in reality we are actually drowning. We are drowning so far deep into debt such that payday is depressing us. Payday is no longer a happy day for South Africans. It is a day where you just want the day to end, but you've been looking forward to it the whole month, So it's like an oxymoron. It's a happy and a sad reality at the same time. There's money, but this money doesn't belong to you. And also that's how we got trapped into the whole cycle of debt. You get paid, the money is not enough, you need to supplement, now you need to service all those extra debts you've been accumulating. So when are you going to have a break? You just need to save and have an additional or 2 or 3 additional revenue income streams.
Victoria, before I let you go, very quickly, what will be your final message to some of us who struggle exactly with the finances, with saving and everything else?
I think my final words would be, just be honest with yourself, right? No one sees your finances. No one knows what's going on. Be honest with yourself. That is if you really want to see a change coming about. We can all walk around looking shiny and golden, but deep down, our finances are rotten. Our finances are not making sense and no one knows, but we know, and it's eating us up inside. So we need to start being honest with ourselves. Once we are honest with ourselves, that is now when we are able to, enlist certain services, do certain things that is going to take us out of that situation, so that at least we're breathing, at least payday comes, that I only have 1,000 rands left for the rest of the month to, go out and spend on the things that I want, and then live within your means. means. 1,000 rands, it sounds bad from another person's perspective, but for you, that's 250 rands every single week that you have to spend. You can manage to buy a six-pack if alcohol is one of the things you like doing. You can manage to still get a takeaway from 250 rands. Live within your means, and you'll see it is not that bad. And before you know it, you will be able to see the incremental changes. You'll be able to see that, actually, life is getting a little bit better because I'm not as stressed. The collection companies are not calling me so often anymore because I'm taking their calls. I've made that arrangement with them, So we need to be kind on ourselves and start putting in the work to see a change.
Victoria, thank you so much for coming through to speak to us. Appreciate your time and your insight.
Only a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Victoria Elias Postmansberg talking to us there. She's a money coach, and I know a lot of us have got big problems and tough relations with how we deal with money. Is it your birthday today? Did you have a birthday yesterday? This is the time where you can drop us that message, and then we will wish you a happy birthday. Or if you have somebody whose birthday it is and then you would like to share with us, do drop us that message, 083-303-7093, or you can simply give us a call, 0861-987-000. Otherwise, on X, send us a tweet at PowerFM987 or directly at Kwena Moabelo. The hashtag is PowerUp. Rafiki are, look, I feel attacked by Victoria. My man, I feel your pain too. I feel your pain. That sometimes, and most of the time when we have this money conversations, I just feel like everything else is personal. Anyway.